Sick? I don't care. You're coming with me this minute. Before I knew what was happening, the man lifted me effortlessly and threw me on his right shoulder. Immediately, he left my house, ignoring my cries of pain. We arrived at the company, and I was carried to the marketing department. He dumped me on my seat. Start working! I had no idea how to react. I found myself typing. However, with each second that passed, I was getting weaker. A few minutes later, I blacked out. The next time I opened my eyes, I realized I was at the hospital. I received my letter of dismiss there, and I couldn't be happier. I chose being jobless over getting killed by having a job. Two years ago, I got a job at a famous chocolate-making company. Before then, I'd used 2 whole years searching for jobs around after finishing college. It was a trying period, and I was desperate to do any job I got. When I got the job at the company as one of the marketers, I was overjoyed. I screamed and jumped in happiness, as it was my dream to be a marketer. That company? Bro, can you cope there? When I announced the news to my friends, they had quite a lot to say about the manager. Apparently, 2 out of my 3 friends knew people who'd worked there and had to leave because of the man. My cousin had to attend therapy sessions for 6 months to get over what he did to her. He's a cruel asshole. No one can report him because he's also very manipulative. Even more, the owner trusts him completely, and everyone he's bullied knows it's a waste of time to try reporting him. The whole thing sounded weird and unbelievable. I mean, there's no way 3 people would report him, and all 3 would be termed liars. Also, couldn't they think of a way to get evidence to prove that the man was evil as they claimed? I concluded that their stories were stupid. I was going to take the job and see for myself if the man was as ruthless as they claimed. I resumed the next day. The first person I encountered was a man with a very good build. He was tall and very muscular. He also had a few strands of gray in his hair. I could see everyone who passed him, bowing their heads to greet him. I immediately concluded that he was the CEO of the company. I was about to approach him when I was stopped by his sudden yell. How dare you drop my bag? You're fired! Fuck out of here this minute! I was shocked. The worker behind him, who I hadn't noticed earlier, had accidentally dropped his bag. I was confused on how he could fire her for that. Another worker, without being told, quickly approached them and took the bag from the lady. Afterward, she turned and walked out in tears. I stood in shock and watched as the man made his way in. Once he got to the elevator, everyone moved away, giving him space. When the elevator opened, those inside quickly rushed out, giving him the chance to use it alone. A thought crossed my mind about him being the manager my friends told me about, but I shook it off. There was no way a manager could have that much authority. Once he'd left in the elevator, the workers heaved a collective sigh. It was obvious that they were scared of him, from their body movements and facial expressions. I approached one of them. Hi, bro. I just got employed yesterday, and it's my first day at work. Who was that man from earlier? That's Mr. William. He's the manager here. In anything you do, avoid him. Even the slightest mistake will make him fire you. He just fired our best marketer for accidentally dropping his bag. Hearing that made me both shocked and scared. My friend's stories were slowly starting to seem true. The man was indeed cruel. However, I hadn't even started working yet. I couldn't give up so soon. As I stepped into the elevator with some colleagues, I resolved within myself to avoid the man as much as I could. Even if I did come across him, I would make sure to do everything I could to not make any mistakes. I walked into the marketing department, and the head of the team approached me. I was assigned to my desk and given the rulebook. I was also given some things to type out. However, the man instructed me to go through the rulebook first, before doing anything. Going through it, my mouth hung open. The rules were outrageous. First, we had no sick leave. How could sick leaves be canceled? I left my seat and went to the leader. I'm sorry, but it says here that there's no sick leave. How's that possible? Well, the manager canceled that for marketers. We have to ensure our chocolate is leading in the markets. We ensure to not fall sick. However, when we do, we treat ourselves here at work. The whole thing didn't seem normal to me. What if it's a serious case and you have to go to a hospital? Well, we make sure it doesn't get to that point by going for a full-body checkup monthly. Please, return to your seat and finish reading. We have a lot to do. After work that day, though it was too stressful. I returned home very tired and unable to even take my night bath. I fell asleep immediately my body touched my bed. The next morning, I was forced to wake up by 6 a.m., have a quick bath, and put on any outfit my hands chose. I had to be at work by 7:30 a.m. I left home around 7 a.m. and quickly got a cab that dropped me at work 5 minutes before the set time. That day was the beginning of my life in hell. I thought I'd be able to excuse myself and get breakfast, but I wasn't allowed. The permission to eat was only from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. I hadn't had dinner the previous night. The thought of not having breakfast, too, broke my heart. I managed to work until it was lunchtime. I felt my energy return after lunch, but it all went away by the time I was done for the day. My body was stiff, and the most stressed out it had ever been. However, when I got home, I didn't make the mistake to sleep off immediately, no matter how sleepy I was. I got my clothes for the next day out and had dinner before I finally slept. The next day, I woke even earlier, had a quick bath, got dressed, fixed breakfast for myself before leaving. My life continued that way, each day coming with even more stress. I could barely see my friends anymore. The only day of the week which I was free, I used it to sleep to my satisfaction. I was getting drained, and I knew it. I always had to down pills for headaches and body pains. I would leave, but I was scared of going back to being jobless. Those 2 years I spent being jobless were horrible. However, having a job wasn't even any better. The only advantage I had was the high payment I received bi-weekly. I knew they paid so much to keep the workers tied to them. For 2 months, I managed to avoid the manager. However, in my 3rd month of working, life happened, and I was forced to finally face him. We'd been working on a new way to push our product even higher, and we finally found a way. We needed to have a meeting with the manager for finalization. I dreaded the day until it finally came.
And who are you, lanky boy? Are you new here?
Before going to work at the company, I was quite fleshy. However, the stress and everything that came from the job had caused me to lose weight so much that I had become lanky with bulgy eyes. Yes, sir. I began working here 3 months ago.
Oh, come up here and open the meeting then.
I'd expected that. The leader had informed me prior that he'd want to test my capacity by doing that. However, I was advised again making my opening perfect. I had to make a mistake to give him something to correct me about. If it were perfect, I'd be targeted by him and tortured verbally until I had to leave the company. He hated to see people better than him. I followed the advice and didn't go overboard. Of course, he had a correction. He yelled while correcting me, but I didn't mind. The meeting was filled with so much yelling and insults, but he finally accepted our idea. I later got to know that he was simply yelling to make us feel our idea was good, but not up to his taste, and he was only agreeing to it because he pitied us. It was crazy. Fast forward to my 6th month, I was getting even worse. I developed insomnia, bad posture, etc. I even began losing my hair rapidly as a result of how stressed I was. Regardless of what I saw the job doing to my health, I didn't quit. One day, my body gave up on trying to hold it in, and I fainted in my room. Fortunately, I woke up a few minutes later. I knew it would be a suicide attempt to go to work that day. I would call the company, but I realized I hadn't had the time to exchange contact with anyone in my department. I decided to receive treatment that day and resume work the next day. Weekly, I reached for my phone and called my personal doctor. He promised to be at my house in an hour. I managed to leave my bed and get a cup of tea while watching TV and waiting for my doctor's arrival. However, 30 minutes later, I suddenly heard the doorbell ring. Though my doctor had arrived earlier, so I forced myself up and went to get the door. However, I was shocked to see the manager standing in front of me. I moved back in fear, and he followed me.
How dare you skip work, huh?
Sir, I'm sick.
Sick? I don't care. You're coming with me this minute.
Before I knew what was happening, the man lifted me effortlessly and threw me on his right shoulder. Immediately, he left my house, ignoring my cries of pain. We arrived at the company, and I was carried to the marketing department. He dumped me on my seat.
Start working!
I had no idea how to react. I found myself typing. However, with each second that passed, I was getting weaker. A few minutes later, I blacked out. The next time I opened my eyes, I realized I was at the hospital. I received my letter of dismiss there, and I couldn't be happier. I chose being jobless over getting killed by having a job. It didn't end there. Once I was discharged, I filed a case of emotional abuse, assault, and physical abuse on workers. I managed to get the previous workers to come in as witnesses, and they agreed, as they were also tired of his wickedness. And I also found nearly all of the previous workers he'd assaulted, and the case was taken to court. The CEO was shocked to see the video of him carrying me out of my house against my wish, which was caught by my CCTV cameras. He was even more shocked by the testimonies of all the workers, which were nearly 100. The court sentenced him to 10 years imprisonment with hard labor. All of his money and investment were also shared between all affected workers, leaving his family who depended on him with nothing. His wife was furious after finding out how horribly her husband had been treating workers and filed for divorce. The CEO also gave me my job back. Due to how well I'd performed at work, more than the old workers, I was promoted to the post of the marketing leader. I didn't think the punishment was enough for the manager, so I went to visit him in prison and told him of my new position. I could see how angry he looked, but I just laughed before I left. I paid some of the wardens to torture him for a week straight. The next week, when I visited again, I was happy to see the marks and injuries all over his body. I'm sure by the time he is out of there, he will be more humble. The company became a safe and enjoyable place to work at. We later heard my boss was nicknamed the Wicked Boss by other inmates and was bullied in prison, and occasionally his food will be seized by other inmates. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel.